Strange facts about Johnny Carson's last show finally revealed. When Johnny Carson walked off the stage of The Tonight Show for the final time on May 22, 1992, it wasn't just the end of an era. It was the closing of a golden chapter in American television. More than 50 million viewers tuned in to watch the King of Late Night say goodbye after 30 years behind the desk. The farewell seemed warm, gentle, and perfectly orchestrated, but behind the laughter and tears were strange, untold facts that only came to light years later. Now, decades after that historic night, producers, crew members, and even Carson's closest friends are revealing the truth behind the scenes. The hidden choices, emotional breakdowns, and unspoken feuds that made Johnny Carson's last show one of the most mysterious broadcasts in TV history. The final show wasn't meant to happen that way. For years, NBC executives had begged Carson to extend his contract. They offered millions in incentives and promised full creative control, but Johnny's mind was already made up. In private, he told his longtime producer Peter Lasley, "I don't want to die behind that desk. I want to leave while people still wish I'd stay." What's strange is that the original plan for his final episode wasn't the sentimental farewell millions saw. It was supposed to be a live comedy celebration with surprise guests, music, and a big onstage reunion. But just a week before the taping, Carson scrapped the entire idea. He told NBC, "No circus. No stars. Just me and the audience who gave me everything." This sudden change caught everyone off guard, even his bandleader Doc Severinsen, who later admitted he wanted the goodbye to feel honest. But honestly, none of us were ready for it. Johnny refused to let his sons attend. One of the strangest emotional decisions came when Carson asked that his surviving son, Corey, not attend the final taping. Carson had lost his other two sons in tragic accidents, and he told friends he couldn't bear to look into his son's eyes that night. Peter Lasley later revealed, Johnny was terrified that seeing Corey in the audience would break him. He said, "If I start crying, I'll never stop." It was a haunting choice, to push family away at the very moment the world was embracing him. A secret message hidden in his monologue. Carson's final monologue seemed simple, nostalgic jokes, reflections, and warmth. But sharp-eyed viewers later discovered a subtle code hidden in his words. When he said, "I bid you a very heartfelt good night," he emphasized the word, heartfelt, in a way he never had before. Crew members later confirmed that this was a reference to his mother, Ruth, who had never once complimented him throughout his career. In fact, when Carson received his first Emmy, she sent a note that read, "Now maybe you'll get a real job." By stressing heartfelt, Johnny was quietly saying goodbye not just to his audience, but to the approval he had chased his entire life and never received. Steven Spielberg was in the audience, but not invited. Among the packed studio crowd that night was none other than Steven Spielberg, who snuck in through a side door without an official invitation. Spielberg, a lifelong fan, had called NBC several times asking for a seat but was told there were none available. Determined, he arrived at the studio anyway, and a sympathetic stagehand found him a place behind the cameras. Years later, Spielberg confessed, "I didn't want to meet him. I just wanted to witness him say goodbye. I didn't want to disturb the magic." The empty desk shot was planned months in advance. At the end of the show, as Carson stood, looked around, and quietly said, "I wish you all good night," the camera panned over his empty desk. The lights dimmed, and the applause slowly faded. Many thought it was spontaneous, but it wasn't. NBC insiders later revealed that Johnny personally directed that final camera move months earlier. He wanted the audience to see the empty chair, the microphone, and the curtain, symbols of the end of an era. He wanted the desk to outlive him, Lasley said. He always said, "That desk belongs to America now." The taped segment NBC never aired. In 2017, an old NBC archive tape labeled, "Carson, Unused Final Segment," was rediscovered. It contained a 7-minute filmed piece that was cut from the broadcast at Carson's request just hours before airtime. In the clip, Carson walked through the empty studio, touching the curtains and props, while a melancholic instrumental version of "Thanks for the Memory" played in the background. He ended with a whisper, "It's time to turn out the lights." When asked years later why he deleted it, Carson reportedly told a friend, "I didn't want people to cry for me. I wanted them to smile." Jay Leno was not supposed to take over immediately. Behind the scenes, Carson's relationship with NBC had been strained. He was unhappy that the network had already begun promoting Jay Leno as his successor before he had even announced his retirement. In a private letter, Carson wrote, "I built this house, and now I feel like they're changing the locks before I move out." He reportedly wanted David Letterman to inherit the show, but NBC refused, fearing Letterman's style was too edgy for Middle America. Carson never publicly criticized the decision, but after retirement, he quietly sent monologue jokes to Letterman's writing team, a secret that wasn't revealed until after Carson's death in 2005. He broke down completely after the cameras stopped. Once the cameras went dark, Carson stood motionless for almost a full minute. The audience continued to clap, unaware that he was silently crying. Crew members said he hugged Ed McMahon so tightly that both men trembled. Doc Severinsen recalled later, "I'd never seen Johnny cry before. He wasn't a man who showed weakness. But that night, he was just human." NBC accidentally destroyed his final cue cards. One of the strangest and most tragic post-show events happened during cleanup. A young production assistant, not realizing the importance of the cue cards Carson used for his final monologue, threw them into the trash. When Lashley discovered what happened, he searched the studio dumpsters, but it was too late. The cards were gone forever. Johnny's last words, literally, ended up in a garbage truck somewhere in Burbank, Lashley lamented. His last words were not scripted. Perhaps the most iconic moment of the night, Carson's last words, were not written on any teleprompter. When he looked into the camera and said, "I bid you a heartfelt good night." It came straight from his soul. The crew had prepared a few closing lines for him, but Johnny refused them all. He didn't want grand speeches or rehearsed farewells. What the audience saw, the pause, the tremor in his voice, the slight smile, was completely spontaneous. The strange goodbye that never aired. A few days after his final show, Carson returned to the studio one last time, unannounced. He entered stage 1 at NBC Burbank alone, without cameras or crew. The janitor working that night later revealed. He stood there in the dark for a long time. Then he whispered, "Thank you," and walked away. That was the real goodbye, unseen, undocumented, purely human. Johnny watched his successor only once. According to his close friend Henry Bushkin, Carson watched The Tonight Show with Jay Leno only one time, the first episode. Halfway through, he turned off the TV and said quietly, "The magic's gone." After that, he never watched another late-night program again. Instead, he spent his final years reading, sailing, and writing letters to a small circle of friends. His ashes were secretly scattered at sea. In keeping with his lifelong desire for privacy, Johnny Carson's ashes were quietly scattered in the Pacific Ocean off the coast of Malibu, with only his wife, Alexis, and 2 close friends in attendance. No public memorial was ever held. One of them later shared that as the waves carried his ashes away, Alexis whispered, "You can go now, Johnny. The curtain's down." The mystery of the missing tape. To this day, one of the 3 master tapes of Carson's final show remains missing from NBC's archive system. Some believe it was stolen by a crew member. Others think Johnny himself requested its destruction. The missing tape reportedly contained alternate angles and off-air moments that showed a more vulnerable Carson, pacing, trembling, even whispering prayers before the curtain rose. NBC has never confirmed or denied the disappearance. The legacy that never faded. Decades later, The Tonight Show has gone through multiple hosts and countless format changes, but none have matched Johnny Carson's quiet brilliance. Every modern host, from David Letterman to Jimmy Fallon, still cites Carson as their North Star. What made Carson special wasn't just his timing or his wit, it was his mystery. He let the audience see enough to laugh, but never enough to fully know him. And perhaps that's why his final show continues to fascinate. It wasn't a goodbye, it was a riddle, a poem, and a mirror held up to America's golden age of television. As the years pass, one truth remains. Johnny Carson didn't just host The Tonight Show, he defined it. And on that last night, when the lights dimmed and the desk sat empty, it wasn't just television saying goodbye to a man. It was America saying goodbye to a part of itself.